Let's have a question about the chicken and the egg, I guess, first. Is it more important to you when you're choosing a movie? Is it more important that the role be interesting or the character be interesting?
I tend really to only work on things that I have a kind of compulsion to do.
For nearly a decade, Hollywood's brightest star burned in silence. Daniel Day-Lewis, the man hailed as the greatest living actor, the artist who transformed himself in There Will Be Blood, Lincoln, and Phantom Thread, had vanished. In 2017, he shocked the world by announcing he was stepping away from acting forever. No interviews, no curtain calls, no farewell tour, just a quiet disappearance into the shadows, leaving behind a void no one else could fill.
But they are so varied.
Yes.
The roles that we've seen you in so far.
Varied. Certainly, they're certainly, the things that most interest me tend to be at some distance from my own life, and they tend to be at some distance from the characters that have interested me before as well.
I found it interesting reading an article about you where you said that sometimes you felt like the flavor of the month, especially after being in.
Fans and critics alike called it the end of an era. Day-Lewis was not just an actor, he was a force of nature, the rare performer who treated every role like a sacred ritual. His absence left Hollywood hollow. For years, whispers filled the air. Was he gone for good? Had the pressure of his craft finally consumed him? Or was there something deeper, something more personal, driving him away from the very stage that made him immortal? Now, nearly 8 years later, the silence has broken. At 68 years old, Daniel Day-Lewis is returning. Not for money, not for awards, not for fame, but for something infinitely more powerful: family. His comeback is tied to the debut film of his son, Ronan Day-Lewis, a project born not in the boardrooms of Hollywood, but in the quiet intimacy of a father and son's shared dream. And so the legend reawakens, not because the world demanded it, but because love did. This is not just a comeback. This is a resurrection. But what really drove Daniel Day-Lewis away in the first place? And why, after years of silence, is he stepping into the spotlight again now? Stay with us, because the truth is far more emotional and far more human than anyone imagined. To understand Daniel Day-Lewis's return, we first need to revisit the weight of his departure. Back in June 2017, Hollywood was blindsided. A statement from his publicist declared that Daniel Day-Lewis would no longer be working as an actor. It was short, almost cold, and left the world with more questions than answers. Why would a man at the very peak of his powers, fresh off his Oscar-nominated role in Phantom Thread, walk away? For Daniel, acting had always been more than a profession. It was obsession. He wasn't just performing roles, he was living inside them, surrendering body and soul to the characters he played. As Abraham Lincoln, he spoke.
And so, he stepped back. No fanfare, no curtain call, just silence. But here's what most people didn't know. Daniel's so-called retirement was never meant to be forever. He himself later called the announcement grandiose gibberish. He wasn't running from acting. He was searching for meaning, searching for something beyond the machinery of Hollywood. That something arrived in the form of his son, Ronan, a young filmmaker with a vision of his own. And when father and son began to dream of working together, Daniel found the spark that had once abandoned him. What started as heartbreak in 2017 was quietly transforming into hope. Daniel Day-Lewis's decision to walk away from acting wasn't sudden. It was a result of years of internal battles, the quiet wars between genius and exhaustion. From the very beginning of his career, Daniel's process was unlike anyone else's. He was a craftsman who immersed himself so completely in his characters that coming back to reality felt almost impossible. With every role, the transformation grew heavier. The triumph of Lincoln left him shattered. The brilliance of There Will Be Blood drained him. By the time Phantom Thread wrapped in 2017, he felt stripped bare. Behind the accolades and Oscars was a man haunted by the toll his art demanded. He admitted there was always a low-level fear running through him. A fear that he could no longer regenerate after each role, no longer bounce back as he once had. Hollywood applauded his devotion, but inside, he felt fragile, depleted. And then came the other battle, the world around the work. The red carpets, the press junkets, the endless glare of celebrity. Day-Lewis had always been intensely private, uncomfortable with the spectacle of fame. While audiences adored the mystique, for Daniel, the machinery of Hollywood left him disillusioned. He loved the craft, but not the circus that followed it. When he announced his retirement in 2017, the world saw finality. But to Daniel, it was more like survival. He needed space, distance, and time to reconnect with himself away from the suffocating weight of expectation. "I never intended to retire," he later admitted. "I just wanted to work on something else for a while." Yet, in that silence, another sadness grew. Daniel knew his son, Ronan, was beginning his own journey into filmmaking. The thought of stepping away entirely meant he might never share that creative fire with his child. That regret lingered like a shadow, and it was in that shadow that the spark of Anemone was born. For Daniel, the choice to return was not about Hollywood. It was about love, legacy, and one last chance to share his art with family. By 2017, Daniel Day-Lewis had already achieved what most actors could only dream of. 3 Academy Awards for Best Actor, more than any other man in history. Universal respect from critics. The reputation of being the actor's actor, a once-in-a-generation talent. He could have rested there, untouchable, his legacy sealed forever. But Daniel's story was never about easy victories. Behind the curtain, the escalation of his crisis was mounting. He confessed that acting, once pure, had become entangled with pain. The method that made him legendary was also what made it unbearable. Each role felt like stepping into the fire, but the fire no longer offered renewal, only ashes. After Phantom Thread, Daniel admitted he simply didn't know if he could find his way back to that furnace again. The industry only heightened the struggle. Hollywood, with its relentless demand for appearances, interviews, and red carpets, was the very opposite of what Daniel valued. He was a private man forced to wear a public mask. Fame was suffocating him. He once said the rituals of promotion left him hollowed out. The applause, the prestige, the wealth, none of it mattered if the art itself left him empty. So he stepped away, perhaps thinking it was permanent. For years, Daniel avoided the stage and the screen, almost disappearing from public view. Rumors swirled. Some said he was battling depression, others that he was hiding from Hollywood altogether. Few understood the truth. Daniel was simply trying to heal. Yet in his solitude, a different kind of pressure grew. Watching Ronan, his son, his mirror, begin to chase his own artistic vision forced Daniel to confront what he had abandoned. Could he really walk away while his son carried the torch forward? Could he deny himself the chance to create something alongside the person who mattered most? This was the breaking point. The stage he had fled from suddenly became the only place where father and son could stand side by side. And so, against the weight of fear, against the hollow echo of retirement, Daniel Day-Lewis agreed to return. Not for the world, not for Hollywood, but for Ronan. The project that brought Daniel Day-Lewis back was unlike anything Hollywood had ever offered him. It wasn't a grand studio epic or a prestige biopic designed to win awards. It was something far more intimate, a film called Anemone, written and directed by his son, Ronan Day-Lewis. For Daniel, the decision was both terrifying and exhilarating. On one hand, he had been away for nearly a decade, unsure if he could withstand the demands of acting again. On the other, this wasn't about studios or contracts. It was about blood, legacy, and trust. In interviews, Daniel revealed that he had carried a sadness during his years away, the realization that his son would go on to make films, and he might never stand alongside him in that creative journey. Wouldn't it be lovely, he thought, if we could do something together in a way that didn't require all the paraphernalia of a big production? Anemone gave him that chance. Unlike the massive sets of Lincoln or Gangs of New York, Ronan's vision was smaller, quieter, deeply personal. The intimacy of the project allowed Daniel to reconnect with acting not as a burden, but as a joy. He wasn't stepping into a Hollywood machine. He was stepping into his son's world. Still, the fears remained. Daniel admitted that, as he aged, it took him longer to find the furnace inside, that inner fire that once came so easily. There was anxiety. What if the spark was gone? What if he had nothing left to give? But from the first moments on set, the fear dissolved. Working with Ronan, he said, reignited that fire instantly. The process, once draining, was now life-giving. It was, from beginning to end, just pure joy to spend that time together, Daniel reflected. The exhaustion was replaced by renewal, the hollowness by fulfillment. And this wasn't just a private triumph. Anemone itself was designed to echo the very themes that had defined Daniel's journey: family, legacy, the fragile ties between fathers and sons. It was art imitating life, and life breathing new purpose into art. For audiences, Anemone will be more than just another film. It will be a reunion between a master and his craft, and between a father and his son. Daniel Day-Lewis's return to acting is not just a personal milestone, it's a cultural event. For nearly a decade, audiences had resigned themselves to the belief that his final bow in Phantom Thread would be the last time they'd ever see him on screen. His comeback shatters that narrative, proving that even the most guarded legends can be pulled back by something stronger than fame. Family. The ripple effect is enormous. For Hollywood, Day-Lewis's return reminds the industry of what true artistry looks like. At a time when blockbusters dominate the landscape and celebrity culture often overshadows craft, his reappearance recenters the conversation on performance itself. Day-Lewis was never about chasing the spotlight. He was about disappearing into characters so completely that the man himself became invisible. Seeing him step back into that space redefines what commitment to art really means. For fans, it's a gift they never expected. Generations who grew up quoting his lines, "I drink your milkshake, from there will be blood," or "the quiet dignity of Lincoln," now get one more chance to witness his genius. But this time, the performance carries an added layer. The knowledge that is not here for trophies or accolades, but to share the screen with his son. That context alone will make Anemone one of the most anticipated films of the year. And then there's the legacy. Many feared that Daniel's retreat from acting would leave his career frozen in 2017. His story ending not with a triumphant farewell, but with a quiet disappearance. Instead, his return reframes that legacy entirely. He's not the tortured genius who burned out under the weight of his own method. He's the artist who found renewal through love and family. That transformation reshapes how history will remember him. Even beyond cinema, there's a universal resonance here. Day-Lewis's story touches on something deeply human. The way passion can fade, the way life can hollow us out, and the way connection, especially with family, can reignite what we thought was gone forever. It's a reminder that artistry doesn't truly die. It waits, patiently, for the right reason to return. And now, the reason has arrived. Daniel Day-Lewis's story has always been about more than cinema. It's about devotion, sacrifice, and the price of greatness. For decades, he gave himself entirely to his craft, vanishing into roles that left audiences spellbound and left him, too often, shattered. When he walked away in 2017, it felt like the inevitable end of a man consumed by the very fire that made him extraordinary. But now, we see something different. We see an artist who has returned not because the world demanded it, but because his heart did. His comeback is not framed by Hollywood's noise, nor by the promise of another Oscar. Instead, it's framed by something universal, the bond between a father and his son. Anemone is more than a film. It is a bridge between generations, a testament to what happens when love and art converge. This return reminds us of a profound truth. Even legends are human. Even the greatest actors in the world wrestle with fear, doubt, and exhaustion. Yet within those struggles lies the possibility of rebirth. Daniel Day-Lewis proves that stepping away doesn't mean the fire is gone. Sometimes, it simply needs the right spark to burn again. For audiences, his reappearance is not just entertainment, it's a gift. A reminder that art, at its best, is not about awards or acclaim. It's about connection. And when the curtain rises on Anemone, viewers will not only witness the return of one of cinema's greatest performers, they'll witness the power of family to heal, inspire, and reignite a soul once thought extinguished. Daniel Day-Lewis once left us in silence. Now, he returns with something louder than applause, something deeper than fame. He returns with joy. And so the question lingers, if this is what brought him back, could this be just the beginning of a new chapter? Or will Anemone stand as his final masterpiece? A closing note written in the language of love? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain, Daniel Day-Lewis has given us one more story, one more chance to see the fire burn. And that is something worth celebrating. White right pointing backhand index if this story moved you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful Hollywood journeys.